What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with Tech Daily, and in this video, we are checking out a couple different budget smartphones. Nowadays, any flagship device you might be interested in could run you $800 or more in the store, and that's a big chunk of change for a lot of people. Also, not everyone needs the latest and greatest, the highest specs, or the most expensive piece of hardware. Sometimes you just need a phone that checks off the important boxes and gets the job done at a good price. I know there are a handful of really good budget devices out right now, and yes, you can definitely pick up last year's flagship at a discount too. But I picked these three phones in particular because they're relatively new and they all each come in at very different price points. The cheapest of the bunch is just $30, and at the higher end we're looking at $350. And with each of these devices, you're getting a really good deal considering how little you're spending. If you're interested in learning more about these phones or picking one up for yourself, I'll leave some links down below. But without further ado, let's check out what these phones have to offer. So kicking things off, we have the ZTE Maven 3, and in case you missed it when I mentioned this a second ago, this phone costs $30. This is a complete, full-fledged 5-inch 4G LTE Android smartphone that costs $30. And I know what you're thinking, that this phone is probably a hunk of junk for only being $30, but I promise you that's not the case. You obviously don't get a whole lot with a phone like this. You kind of have to keep your expectations in check here. But what you do get is a very usable Android experience on a solid device that ticks off all the important things. A nice big screen, good enough specs to handle casual use, a big battery to get you through the day, which is removable, expandable storage, and honestly, even though it isn't the prettiest looking software, using this device isn't a bad experience at all. For someone who doesn't need a lot, for someone who just wants to call and text, browse the web, read, and maybe use a handful of third-party apps, you seriously can't go wrong here. It's $30. It was released a couple months ago, so it's still new, and I was pleasantly surprised to say the least. The biggest sacrifice, I think, with a device like this is probably with the cameras. They're not totally potato quality. I mean, you can still get some good enough pictures with the 5-megapixel shooter on the back, but if you really like capturing those special moments, this phone probably isn't the best. No matter how you look at it though, I'm gonna say it one more time for the people in the back, this phone costs $30, and at that price, for the kind of device you end up getting, this is seriously a really good deal. If you're willing to spend a bit more money, for about $120, you can get this instead. This is the Huawei Ascend X-T2, and out of the three phones I'm featuring in this video, this device, in my opinion, has the best overall value for your money. The X-T2 is a big, beefy 5.5-inch device with an IPS display and an all-metal body, and this is a really solid device in the hand. Huawei is a well-known brand, of course. They make excellent higher-end smartphones, but this thing is equally as excellent for the price. The 5.5-inch IPS 720p display is bold and bright, and sure, Huawei's Android skin isn't a favorite amongst a lot of people, but with this device, I can live with it. Spec-wise, you're getting more than enough to handle everyday use with an octa-core Qualcomm Snapdragon 435 processor, Adreno 505 GPU, 2GB of RAM, expandable storage, and a 4,000 mAh battery that not only will last for forever, but also supports quick charge, so the phone will barely spend any time plugged in. And oh yeah, a nice 12-megapixel rear camera with all the bells and whistles for pictures and video. Honestly, this phone probably deserves its own separate review video, but let me just leave it at this. If Huawei sold the X-T2 for twice as much, I still wouldn't complain. Rounding out the list is the newest device, the most expensive, and probably the most well-known. This is the new HTC U11 Life, and I'm showing the back of this phone first because that chrome blue finish is really crazy and makes the phone stand out to say the least. At $350, this is the little brother from the HTC's U11 line. They of course have the standard U11 and the U11 Plus, but this U11 Life still has a lot to offer in its own right. The body is acrylic instead of glass, but just as shiny and just as fingerprinty, but makes the phone super light while still feeling relatively premium. And just like the other U11 devices, this phone comes with EdgeSense, HTC's squeezability feature that allows you to access shortcuts or trigger a voice assistant when you squeeze the device. It's a weird flagship feature that I personally don't use much, but it's nice to see HTC decided not to cheap out and exclude it from the budget device. As far as the internals go, you get more than enough with a Snapdragon 630, 3GB of RAM, expandable storage. The phone just feels pretty pretty snappy, and there really isn't much this device wouldn't be able to do. It's also pretty impressive in the battery department with a 2600 mAh battery that lasts a full day and then some. You also get a super quick and widely cherished fingerprint sensor up front, as well as 16 megapixel cameras on the front and back of this phone, so pictures and video will look excellent overall. So I know there are a bunch of different budget devices on the market right now, some better than others. I'm sure you guys have your own thoughts on some good ones, so let me know what you might recommend in the comments below. Also, be sure to follow Tech Daily on Twitter and subscribe to the Tech Daily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.